What message do you have to Prince fans?
Just keep saying prayers for everyone, for the family.
There was no sign of this. This is just...
You know, everyone gets sick once in a while. We don't know. We're going to find out.
First Diddy party I went to was at Prince's house. So you want to go to Prince's house to the Diddy party where Tyrese is performing and Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher are swinging on swings. That is what's happening on the other side of the wall. And so the one thing that makes this party different than a Jamie Foxx party or any other celebrity party that wrangles a bunch of young women or guys or whatever too, is that Diddy didn't let you bring your security in the party.
The courtroom was on edge. Sheila E. took center stage with a personal confession from Prince nobody foresaw, and then Diddy's response caused shockwaves throughout the room. Here's what happened. Sheila E. is not any name associated with Prince. She is one of the handful of individuals who really knew him as a person and an artist. Their connection went beyond just working together. Sheila was not simply making music alongside him. She was living a life with him that was comprised of creative peaks, intimate dialogue, and personal revelations. She became part of Prince's innermost circle, a luxury for someone as protective as he was. And keep in mind, Prince was not only choosy about his music.
In her final day on the stand, Cassie Ventura spoke again about the day Combs brutally beat her in a hotel hallway in 2016. Ventura, who is potentially days away from giving birth, testifying that Combs was blackout at the time of the assault from drugs and alcohol. At one point, reading a text she sent him after the violent attack. "I am not a rag doll. I am someone's child." Following 20 hours of testimony this week, her attorney Douglas Wigdor speaking outside the courthouse, reading a statement from Ventura.
"I hope that my testimony has given strength and a voice to other survivors and can help others who have suffered to speak up and also heal from abuse and fear."
He was choosy about people. If he let you in close, it was not an accident. Their bond was not simply palpable behind closed doors. It played out for the entire world to see. Sheila E. collaborated with Prince on some of his most legendary music, from their chart topper, A Love Wizard, to her unforgettable stage performances on his tours. He did not simply spot feature her as a singer or a drummer. He promoted her to the status of co-star. Prince trusted Sheila to represent his vision, and in a lot of ways co-created. She had this ability to match his energy on stage, seamlessly fit into his offbeat and electrifying world, and beyond the realm of music, she was always in his company at functions, as if they shared an unspoken understanding that didn't require public definition. But here's where some eyebrows begin to lift. Why reveal Sheila E's so-called words from Prince now? That's the question her doubters have asked. And it's a legitimate one. Prince died years ago, and during all of that time, Sheila has talked freely about their friendship, their passion for music, and their mutual recollections. So why wait? Why release something this incendiary in the midst of a courtroom meltdown involving?
Today's cross-examination focusing heavily on Ventura's allegation that Combs raped her in 2018 after they had ended their relationship, which he denies. The defense showing text messages between the former couple the day after the alleged rape, including one in which Ventura sent a heart emoji to Combs. Combs' team also trying to poke holes in Ventura's timeline.
That is not the gotcha moment that defense attorneys think it is. I mean, at the end of the day, witnesses are not great on specific dates, particularly when they go back years ago.
The defense also pointing to a text exchange between Ventura and Combs from 2012, in which she wrote, "I don't want to freak off for the last time. I want it to be the first time for the rest of our lives." At times today, the defense appeared to struggle to maintain momentum, facing frequent objections by prosecutors and regularly stopping Ventura's questioning to whisper together. Combs appeared to be actively involved, passing his lawyers notes. In a striking exchange with Combs' lawyers, Ventura saying, "Despite it all, I don't hate him. I have love for the past and what it was."
We also saw musician Dawn Richard take the stand. She said that she witnessed Combs be violent with Ventura over the course of their relationship. I just want to remind everyone that Combs denies all of the allegations against him. Back to you.
Diddy, of all individuals, for some the timing is a little too pat, perhaps too deliberate. Is this a matter of loyalty to Prince, or is there some other agenda at stake? Critics have wondered about how personal testimony such as this can influence public opinion in ways that occasionally hijack fact. Still, Sheila's credibility cannot simply be discredited on account of the timing. Over the years, her observations regarding Prince have frequently been consistent, and supported by their mutual experience, the two weren't merely collaborators. They worked on each other as friends. In his famously insular world, Sheila was one of the handful who got close enough to know his mind. She's talked about their extended discussions and the personal counsel he'd share with her, offering a glimpse into Prince that the public never got, whether it was his musings on life or his guarded sentiments about the business. Sheila was usually the listener when Prince opened up the world of law, as well too also regards testimony such as this. Greatly consequential courts, particularly those dealing with well-known individuals, tend to go with personal stories to add context. And when someone as intimate as Sheila E describes a discussion with someone as iconic as Prince, that holds merit. But the kicker to this is the material of her testimony. It wasn't broad or vague. It was detailed. She alleges that Prince said something specifically about Diddy. If Sheila E is telling the truth, Prince didn't leave us music and memories.
I'm gonna go to Prince's house to the Diddy party where Tyrese is performing and Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher are swinging on swings. That is what's happening on the other side of the wall. And so the one thing that makes this party different than a Jamie Foxx party or any other celebrity party that wrangles a bunch of young women or guys or whatever too, is that Diddy didn't let you bring your security in the party.
But here's the twist. What if Prince had the cameras rolling the whole time? He was known for being private, calculated, and always in control. So what if he had incriminating footage and that's why he never attended the parties? Well, some folks definitely believe he may have kept the footage or even handed it over to someone before he passed. And now whispers are growing that his name could come up in court. Child, this trial is about to be one for the books, and I'm here for all of it. Okay, of course we already have a few names that came up during the jury selection, and some of them are people we never really expected to make the cut, like Michelle Williams, Robert Downey Jr., Mike Myers, and Lauren London. But then there are names we definitely expected to come up, like Cassie, who filed the first lawsuit. Remember, Cassie said in her lawsuit that a lot of things that happened to her were witnessed by Diddy's staff and employees of Bad Boy Entertainment and Diddy's related businesses, but no one dared to speak up. In fact, these assistants were the ones tasked with the responsibility of taking gifts to Cassie after a DV incident. And Cassie even said in the lawsuit that the assistants were also the ones who would help to set up the freak-offs where everything took place, including by setting up the hotel suites with baby oil and Astroglide. Cassie even said in the lawsuit that after one of the incidents, Diddy's head of security and assistant saw her and they both began to cry. So we expect a lot of these staff members to be summoned. Anywho, Harve Pierre, who was implicated in a lawsuit against Diddy filed by a Jane Doe, also made the cut. She claimed Harve Pierre convinced her to fly from Detroit to New Jersey, where she was allegedly SA'd by him and Diddy. Other than Harve, Young Miami, who was on Diddy's payroll and was allegedly even a transporter of substances, was also mentioned in the jury selection process. Someone else on the list is Dallas Austin. And all I could gather is that the producer was a childhood friend of Kim Porter, Diddy's late wife, who became a point of conversation as people speculated if Diddy had something to do with her sudden death. There's also Lorianne Gibson, who filed a complaint about Diddy to the police back in 2007, claiming Diddy picked up a chair, threatening her on the set of MTV's Making the Band. Aubrey O'Day was also mentioned, but she has been outspoken in her support for Cassie going public with her allegations against Diddy. And she also accused him of making his own inappropriate advances towards her. Former Danity Kane member Dawn Richard also made the cut, but we also know that she previously sued Diddy, accusing him of SA. The suit accused Diddy of beginning his alleged tirade when she began filming MTV's Making the Band.
Yo, what? Yo, how many? Well, they said it's mad lawsuits and this is all these people gonna be on the stand. Yo,
He left us opinions, perhaps, which would still ring out today, opinions connected to the very man currently seated at the epicenter of this storm in the courtroom. And that's where this puzzle begins to reorient its pieces. With Sheila's credibility cemented, the attention turns intensely on Diddy, his history, his current state, and what he has to lose based on how the remainder of this trial unfolds. Things, as they say, are just beginning. Diddy's legal battles have dominated headlines for months, but the courtroom moment that includes Sheila E's testimony feels like the peak of increasing scrutiny. As much as Diddy's own reputation once shined with success in business, music, and entertainment, it's now clouded by a maelstrom of lawsuits, allegations, and inside industry rumors. The details of the present case are multifaceted: accusations of wrongdoing, scathing attacks against his business methods, and some say he's used his power in the industry unfairly for years. It's created a domino effect of lawsuits and public scandals that have piled one atop another, gouging cracks into a formerly untouchable public image. What's riding on Diddy isn't merely his position in the entertainment sphere, something he worked decades building, but his public legacy and business empire. A negative decision in this courtroom could mean huge financial losses, lost respect from his industry counterparts, and a reputation that might not rebound in the views of fans and collaborators. He's already under intense scrutiny on social media and in celebrity news cycles, where rumor spins quicker than fact. Losing this case, or even seeming guilty, could ripple over everything associated with his name, whether
Expect a bunch of other names to come up during the trial, but like I said, Prince was not on my bingo card, and especially not about him allegedly having a tape on Diddy. Makes me wonder, could this have had anything to do with Prince's death? Could this be the deep dark secret about his death, y'all? Well, we know that Prince knew a few days before his death that it was the end of the road for him, and he even posted a picture of himself which contained a since deleted message, just when you thought you were safe. In fact, during his final appearance at a party at Paisley Park, just after his reported treatment and days before his death, Prince reportedly told attendees, "Wait a few days before you waste any prayers." And just like he had predicted, Prince died at age 57 after being found unresponsive at his estate in Minnesota. At the time, health officials determined Prince died of an accidental fentanyl OD after unknowingly taking counterfeit Vicodin laced with the highly potent synthetic opioid. But it never made sense that clean-living Prince died of an OD.
Did he have health problems?
That I don't know, right? What I know is that he was really health conscious.
Right.
He was a vegan. He didn't abuse alcohol. I didn't know of him abusing drugs. He worked out, so, that also really concerned me, because it made me think that, wow, so you mean you do all these things to take care of yourself and you die so young?
So the thing about Prince is that he fought with people a lot before he died, especially over ownership of and control over his music. He waged a career-long battle against any company that he felt stood in the way of artists' rights and money. And allegedly, he paid the ultimate price for that: death. Whether Warner Brothers was involved or not with having him unalived is still up for debate. But a lot of his fans definitely think that they were involved in his death. See, he was signed to Warner Music in 1977 when he was just 18. And even though the album he released between 1978 and 1981 did not do that well, he was kept on the label, as he was regarded as a musician that reflected well on Warner, which at the time was a company that appeared to invest long-term in serious talent. In 1982, 1 year after MTV launched, Prince released more music, and he went top 10 in the US for the first time, and became part of a new breed of musicians who understood the power of the music video as a way to market an artist and build their own iconography and mythology. At this point, fans were copying his look, and by 1984, with the release of Purple Rain, he was arguably the biggest and certainly the most exciting pop star on the planet. But it reached a point where Prince didn't like how Warner owned and controlled his name, as well as any music released under that name. He even dramatically changed his name to that of a symbol and was referred to as Symbol, Squiggle, or the artist formerly known as Prince. And he was actually pretty vocal about what was happening.
It's his firm's brand alliances or his legendary status as a hip-hop tycoon within the courtroom. The tension is palpable, and Diddy himself has emerged as one of the most watched figures at the trial. Eyewitness accounts from the press portray a man under huge stress, his characteristic swagger, a signature move toned down for a calmer, quieter presence that verges on the nervous. There have been times when his composure seems to slip during cross-examinations. For instance, some press reports saw him clinging to the sides of his chair or rubbing his temples, his frustration barely contained. At one point, one of the opposing party's witnesses produced incriminating evidence, and those present recount Diddy's clenched jaw and furtive sidelong glances spoke volumes. Observers have also homed in on his responses, carefully treating them like pieces of a puzzle that could suggest how confident or desperate he is about the case's direction. It's not just his lawyers in the spotlight, it's him. Speculation about his mood and mannerisms has filled the celebrity blogosphere. People are analyzing not only the facts but Diddy's body language, such as when he allegedly rolled his eyes and shrugged at a series of questions that he clearly wished to rebuff. Moments like those only fuel public interest in whether his calm is fraying at the edges under pressure of what's on the line. And then there's the wild card: Sheila E's testimony. Early in the trial, sources close to the case hinted that she might say something explosive, a piece of information related to the one man who always seemed above reproach, Prince. By the time whispers of her testifying turned into reality, the courtroom hummed with excitement, with the words of a late legend, conveyed through someone who arguably knew him best, completely shattered Diddy's defense. That's what people are now wondering, and there's dark fascination with how much damage her testimony could inflict when Sheila E. finally did testify. It was no ordinary moment. Her name alone carried gravity to the proceedings.
It's been extremely challenging, but also remarkably empowering and healing for me. I hope that my testimony has given strength and a voice to other survivors and can help others who have suffered to speak up and also heal from abuse and fear. For me, the more I heal, the more I can remember. And the more I can remember, the more I will never forget.
But it was the notion of her testifying on behalf of Prince that chilled the room. This wasn't merely some gratuitous remark from an outsider. It was personal, it was unexpected, and it was perhaps ruinous. By now the stage was set in full, the stakes looming high, and all attention focused on one telling question: what was Sheila going to disclose, and how would it hit Diddy? The second half of the trial was about to leave everyone in awe. The room fell silent as Sheila E. took the stand, her posture calm but measured. All eyes were on her. The significance of what she was about to say wasn't lost on anyone. This wasn't just a star testifying. It was someone stepping forward with words allegedly from Prince himself. Reporters scribbled furiously in their notebooks, and several people in the gallery leaned forward, straining to catch every word. Even the judge seemed unusually attentive, as if anticipating the gravity of what was coming next. There was a collective sense in the air that this wasn't just another routine testimony. The atmosphere was electric with expectation. Sheila began with a slow, deliberate cadence of someone revisiting something deeply personal yet weighty enough to matter. In this courtroom, she talked about her bond with Prince, reiterating just how private he was as a person and how fiercely he guarded his thoughts. She was careful, though pausing in moments to collect herself, a sign that this wasn't easy for her to share. And then she pivoted to the part everyone had been waiting for: the words Prince allegedly confided to her about Diddy. For a figure like Prince, known for being deeply protective of his artistic vision and legacy, saying anything about his peers or competitors wasn't something.
But here's a twist. What if Prince had the cameras rolling the whole time? He was known for being private, calculated, and always in control. So what if he had incriminating footage and that's why he never attended the parties? Well, some folks definitely believe he may have kept the footage or even handed it over to someone before he passed. And now whispers are growing that his name could come up in court. Child, this trial is about to be one for the books, and I'm here for all of it.
He did lightly. His reputation was built on both mystery and genius. Sheila explained that in one of their final conversations, Prince opened up in a way that caught even her off guard. While she didn't specify the exact context at first, she hinted at disapproval, saying that he had strong feelings about the direction the music industry was heading and certain individuals he believed were responsible for that decline. It was clear even before she spoke a single name that the courtroom was holding its collective breath. As Sheila recalled those exact words, her voice trembled, not with nerves, but with a sense of emotional weight. "He told me watch people like him," she said as the room froze. She didn't have to clarify who him was. By that point, the implication was loud and clear. Diddy, sitting just feet away from her, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Murmurs rippled through the audience, though they quickly hushed as she continued, saying Prince warned against the kind of influence that prioritized profit over true artistry. He allegedly described it as a poison to music and expressed concern about how that approach could taint the very foundation artists like him had tried to build. Sheila's delivery wasn't theatrical, it was methodical, almost intimate. It felt less like a statement and more like she was recounting a conversation that had lingered in her mind long after it happened. She didn't embellish or try to inject drama into what Prince said. She simply let his words, as she remembers them, resonate on their own. For a moment, it seemed like the courtroom forgot to breathe. Prince's image as a perfectionist who lived and died for the integrity of his art amplified the impact of her testimony. These words weren't careless remarks from just anyone. They carried the weight of one of the most respected voices in music history. The reaction to her testimony was immediate, and dramatic gasps filled the air, and some people exchanged stunned looks, clearly processing what they just heard. Diddy's legal team glanced at him, perhaps gauging how he felt in the moment, while reporters already started furiously typing headlines for their respective outlets. It wasn't just a strategic bombshell, it was a deeply personal jab. Whether Sheila E. had done this out of loyalty to Prince or simply to fulfill her obligation to the court wasn't entirely clear, but what was evident, at least in that room, is that her testimony didn't feel rehearsed. It felt raw. This wasn't just an accusation, It felt like the ghost of Prince himself had entered the courtroom delivering a warning that couldn't be ignored. Before Sheila E. took the stand, Diddy sat rigid, his expression locked into what some described as a calculated calm. Dressed sharply in a suit that hinted at his usual flair, he carried himself with a cool confidence, even though the tension in the room was unavoidable. Still, there were slight cracks, quick glances toward his legal team, occasional shifts in his seat, and subtle adjustments to his tie. It was the demeanor of a man who knew all eyes were on him, but tried to act unbothered. Whether it was nerves or simply focus was anyone's guess, but it was clear he felt the weight of the moment before it had even arrived. As Sheila began recounting her connection with Prince, Diddy's calm exterior remained. He sat back, his face unreadable, maintaining a stillness that almost seemed rehearsed. But when she transitioned into the alleged words from Prince, everything about his body language started to shift. Sheila's voice didn't waver, it carried the kind of authority you don't question. And as her words landed, it was as if you could feel the temperature in the room drop. According to multiple reporters, present the slight smirk Diddy had worn faded instantly. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tightened, and he leaned forward slightly, as if needing to physically brace himself against what Sheila just said when she delivered the line, "He told me, watch people like him." Diddy's reaction was immediate and impossible to ignore. Eyewitnesses described him as visibly tensing, his lips parting as though he was about to interrupt, but holding back at the last second. One person seated closer to him even claimed they heard a faint chuckle under his breath, a sound they couldn't quite distinguish as disbelief, annoyance, or something darker. Whatever it was, it left an impression, and several courtroom observers later described the reaction as eerily telling. The rest of Sheila's testimony only seemed to dig deeper under Diddy's skin. When she mentioned Prince's warning about a poison to music, Diddy's expression hardened. He broke eye contact with Sheila and looked down, his hands fidgeting with a pen that had been laid out in front of him on the table. It was a far cry from the composed mogul image he usually projected. A few murmurs rippled through the room, partly in response to her words, but also in reaction to Diddy's body language. The courtroom isn't a place for outbursts. Everyone expects restraint, but in that moment, his restraint felt paper thin. What made this reaction so captivating was the ambiguity of it all. Was Diddy visibly upset because he knew this testimony could hurt his defense, or was it the audacity of someone invoking Prince's name against him that set him off? Legal analysts have already begun dissecting the optics of his response, noting how easily it could be interpreted as guilt by a jury, or worse, as a sign that Sheila's testimony struck a nerve he wasn't expecting. A composed Diddy might have shrugged it off, but the tension in his face told a different story. This moment of vulnerability, whether genuine or calculated, has already planted seeds of doubt. Public opinion thrives on perception, and for someone as image-conscious as Diddy, these few seconds in the courtroom might hold consequences far beyond the trial itself. With this turn of events, it's clear the courtroom wasn't prepared for Sheila's testimony, or how deeply it would rattle Diddy in front of everyone. And with that, all eyes turned to what this meant for the overall case. Sheila E.'s courtroom testimony, potential impact on the case, wasn't just a moment.